Ready to roll.
Rock and roll.
Alright fellas, give me your eyes real quick. So just to pick up where we left off last time, we went over appreciation. So today we're going to go over two. We're going to go over consideration, we're going to go over communication, and then early next week we're going to try and come together and actually finish the creed and go over preparation, effort, and accountability, just because I kind of feel like these two today tie together, and then the three next week kind of tie together. And the whole thought process behind it is that we go through the whole creed, we've laid a solid foundation, we've communicated what the creed means to each other, to this team, and then once y'all come back for practice right on the 5th, now y'all kind of already laid the foundation mentally, physically, and now it's just time to go put that product out there that we've been working on mentally and physically. So today, consideration, communication. Someone want to take the lead and read consideration for me?
Oh yeah, I got it. Consideration. We keep our team space clean and neat and are respectful to other people's space. We always leave a place better than we found it.
Okay, so let's just volley that around a little bit. Anybody want to share with everybody what this means to them and how we could maybe apply it to this team?
I think just being respectful and just like when we're, especially against like other teams like away, just being respectful for their courts and their trainers and their coaches and staff and stuff. I remember UK came here and they did the complete opposite, and it had a pretty lasting effect on me. So kind of like that.
It's a good thing to remember. I think one thing we've discussed this whole, throughout all these sessions, we've talked a lot about energy. And when we talk about energy, you don't necessarily have to be disrespectful. That has to be about us. So to further his point, when we bring energy even on the road, that doesn't mean that you don't treat people with great class, great integrity. So I think that's one thing to remember, be considerate of people's belongings, their property. That's going to reflect you, this team, and this university. Anybody else?
I think it's just kind of like treat other people's homes how we want them to treat our homes. I mean, it's kind of the same thing you said, but just treat other places like we want them to treat us.
Exactly. So kind of just treat people how you want to be treated. Simple, easy rule. Another thing that it kind of brings to mind for me in consideration is just, and we've hit on it before, is just being selfless. I think, this will be my 12th year coaching. And, I played for 12 years before that in different sports, different teams. And I think it was always really interesting. But, looking back, they say hindsight's 20/20. Looking back, I can always say it wasn't always about the talent on the team based on what success or failures we had. It had a lot more to do with the team's camaraderie, the unity of the team, and whether the individuals on the team really cared for one another. Were they willing to put each other first before themselves? We've discussed this a little bit before, being selfless, and I think that's what consideration is considering y'all before I consider myself. And I think, that's easier said than done, and I think that's something for all y'all to think about. I think going into it that y'all aren't going to be the most talented team that's out there on the court, but that doesn't mean that y'all can't be champions. And it's going to take things like being selfless in order to be champions. You're going to have to be able to put the guys in this room before you. We've discussed what love is. Doing whatever's best for someone, no matter what it costs you, that's being selfless. Being willing to put your things to the side, the problems you're dealing with at school, at work, whatever, you're being negative in your head, not showing that, not allowing those problems you have internally become an external issue to where they become clutter for your team. Don't bring your mess to work, right? So that's something that y'all need to think about. If this group wants to be special, we really got to focus on being selfless. Be able to say, you know what, this isn't about me today. Practice isn't about me today. It's about our team getting better. So what do I have to do to get my mind right as an individual to help these guys get better? And I think if you can learn to approach not only sports but life like this, I think you'll learn to be a lot happier. I can speak for myself, and I think everybody would agree. you've never been upset after giving somebody a gift. Like, think about Christmas, think about someone's birthday. Every time you give a gift, that's like one of the most joyful moments. You're like, man, I feel really good that I did that for somebody. Even more so than maybe getting a gift. So I think, being able to be selfless and being able to put other people in this room before yourself, without you realizing it, you're going to be able to be in a state of happiness because you're doing stuff for other people. And at the end of the day, it's going to help you achieve what you want to accomplish. Because, let's be honest, as an individual, you're not going to be able to achieve that without the men in this room. And I think that's the main struggle. Because, let's be honest, tennis isn't really a team sport until you get to the college level, right? Give me a show of hands who's been on a team before they got here. A little more than half, So, it's not something that everybody's really used to. And I think it could be really difficult at first to say, you know what, I'm going to consider what Nico wants before what I want. And I think that's something that we need to learn as a team, as individuals, in order to have success this year. And I think teams will recognize it from the jump. Like, being able to put aside what you're doing to go watch one of your teammates match and provide great energy when you could be taking a nap, eating a banana, hitting on the cute girl in the stands. That's being selfless. Does that make sense? But you're putting him first. And within doing that, you're going to help get the results you want. So I think that's the biggest thing that we need to take from consideration. When we see consideration, it's not just about how we treat our property, how we treat other people's property, but also how we treat the people on this team. Okay? And I think that goes into communication. Someone want to read communication for me?
Yeah, I got it. Communication. We engage in conversation with and actively listen to family, coaches, teammates, staff, recruits, fan, etc.
Okay, so we've talked a great deal about communication. Let's volley that around too. Somebody just kind of tell me how that's going to help us or how we can apply this.
Always need to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Let us know what's going through each other's minds.
Being honest with each other. I think that's really important.
Someone asked me the other day, how's the mental development going? How's the leadership development going? How are those classes going? The tennis guys getting better? Are they getting worse? And I said, we're going to find out in January, right? Like, I don't know yet. Like, it's still a work in progress. And I think, like I just asked you, how are we going to apply it? I think one thing we got to do, we must apply it. Say that with me on 3. We must apply it. 1, 2, 3.
Apply it.
1, 2, 3.
We must apply it.
All these words that we talked about, we have to apply it. It's not just about talking about it, it's about being about it, right? We share these ideas, we communicate these ideas so that we say, you know what, that's how I'm going to be from now on. So when you see it on the wall, it's not just a word, it means something. Something sticks out that Nico said, something sticks out that Becker said, something sticks out that Stu said. It reminds you of your team, it reminds you of your family. That's what the creed's about. That's what these sessions are about. It's more than just words. It's more than just a paragraph or sentences put together. It's your family. It's your bond. It's your mission statement. It's who we are as a team. It's who they'll see when they compete against us. Does that make sense? And I think communication, honestly, is one of the most important things. You think about a relationship, and this is a relationship, a form of a relationship. If you were to take 2 people that are in a relationship and not allow them to communicate, what's the chances of that relationship surviving? We live in a society where a greater percentage of marriages fail than they succeed. I come from a broken home, so I know how this is hurtful and how this sucks and how this ruins people's lives and changes people's lives. So communication's the #1 thing. I watch my parents upset with one another and not communicate properly. So it's like, we're in a relationship, we're part of a relationship, we're on a team together, right? So it's very important that we pay attention to how we communicate with one another. And I think there's different forms of communication. Obviously, there's different levels. There's the coach to player communication, and we got to be extremely coachable. We got to be willing to put our pride to the side and say, what do I need to do? I'm here to serve you. That's what I signed up for. To be coachable, to serve you. He's got your best interest in mind. It might not always seem like it, especially at 6 a.m., but he does. Okay? That's why he came and found you, and that's why he's trying to help you win rings. He's trying to help you become the man you signed up to become. Okay? So that's one level of communication. Be coachable. The next level of communication is amongst one another, from teammate to teammate. So these sessions we've been having, it's just a form of communication. Y'all have learned a lot about each other that y'all probably didn't know about one another if y'all wouldn't have experienced this. Y'all learned each other's lives. Y'all learned each other's strengths, weaknesses, just little things that you just wouldn't have known, And I think I have seen that the bond has carried over a little bit, maybe hanging out a little bit more outside the walls, which is important. And I think the direct source of that is communication. It's like, think of anything spiritually. You don't communicate to your God, how are you supposed to have a relationship? There's no source. There's no water. If you don't feed a plant, how's it supposed to grow? Communication is what's going to make this team grow, what's going to make this bond, this family, this relationship grow. So I think as individuals on this team, you have to constantly, and it's every day, right? I mean, Coach G's married, he knows. Every day. That's not, that ring on his finger, that's every day. And he could probably have the best day yesterday, and for some reason today is just all messed up. And that could be the same thing for us. Because it's not just about keeping 2 people happy, it's 10, 11, 12, 13 people. So there's even more people. Because guess what? We're all going to look at this sheet, and we're going to see different things. 13 people are going to see 13 different things. Because you know what? There's fact, and then there's perception. Fact is what's really on this paper, and perception is what you think you see, what you feel you see. Does that make sense? So you got to be able to relate that. Let me get on Becker's level, because right now I'm not agreeing with him, but let me try and get in his shoes and see what he sees and feel what he feels. Does that make sense? I think that's what y'all have to think about. What are you going to say?
I think it's just like communicating with your teammates and like coaches to bring like the best out of each other. And play like I don't know, like George could probably like communicate more than me because like I need more like talking to, and that like brings the best out of me. But then like someone else doesn't need someone to, like he doesn't need to say as much because he's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Different people get pushed, their buttons pushed differently.
Yeah,
Is that what you're
and
saying?
like I don't know, as a team, like for each individual, we just need a way to like communicate with them when they're on the court to like bring the best out of their game.
No, I agree. I think that's a great point. Understanding what each person needs, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and I keep, pairing this and creating analogies, but it's based off of books I've read. So I read this book called The 5 Love Languages, and it's about keeping a relationship together. So I'm just going to use this as an analogy. They say the number one reason why there's divorces or split-ups is because a couple's using the wrong love language, and I think that's what you're hitting on, is just making sure that you're using the right language. Like, if Stu might not get encouraged by me yelling at him, whereas Nico might. So I think it's important to know what works for Stu, what works for Nico, and the only way to know that is to continue to work together, and to continue to learn from one another, and continue to spend time with one another, right? And ask questions, right? I've gotten y'all to come up here every day, every time we've done this, to learn a little bit more about each other, so that you kind of open up and say, hey, this is who I am, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, this is who I am, this is how you're going to help me become better, help us become better. Does that make sense? So I think that's that's the 2 top things. Consideration, being selfless, putting everybody in this room before you, and then communication, learning how to feed this team, learning how for this team to grow, to thrive, to head in the right direction. And it's going to be an everyday battle. I got the schedule here. January 19th, the first match, and then we have NCAA at the end of May. I mean, that's months, that's days, hours. That's a lot of time. So you talk about consistency, being able to do something on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, for a whole month. Like, that's a lot of communication. There's going to be a lot of ups. There's going to be a lot of downs. Being able to respond to those ups, being able to respond to those downs. Like, we all have been part of, whether it be tennis, other sports, we've all been part of ups. We've all been part of downs. It's just part of life, the ebb and flow of life. being able to collectively handle those ups and collectively handle those downs and come together and help each other during those ups and downs is going to really ultimately show what we're going to, receive as a result, or who we're going to become as a team. And I think that's why we're spending this time together, so that we can attack this season the strongest way we know how, mentally, physically, not just with our talents, with our abilities, with our potential. So I think what we're going to do today is, instead of...
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can you maybe share with us a little bit about, clearly Saturday was unreal.
Yeah.
But there had to be a ton of confidence, certainly a lot of communication going on between players that either helped them or hurt them. Sims is one play away maybe, or one series away from being pulled. There was a guy pulled, DB was pulled. I heard Coach Saban after the game say, we competed the best that we've ever done, and truly, I mean, if they gave up 630 yards, they had to figure out a way to still get through it. In the yardage, it didn't matter, because at the end of the day, who got the win was all that mattered.
Right.
And it seemed to me that that's been kind of the theme all season. Sure, you guys are talented as can be, but really,
What's the difference?
It hasn't been like this overwhelming team this team that's just been overwhelming opponents. You guys have had to compete. I mean, a game in Arkansas versus a game versus A&M versus this last weekend.
LSU.
I mean, those are so different.
Yeah.
And LSU, being down. So what is it? What are things that are being communicated?
Yeah.
Why are things working?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually had that written down, that when it came to okay, so my experience with this team. So as a coach, and you'll be able to understand where I'm coming from. I think, and I'm still a young coach. I've only coached 12 years, and that might seem like a lot to y'all, but in coaching years, that's I'm still a baby in the coaching world. So it's what I've experienced in 12 years, and I'm starting to pick up on this, because you kind of observe more and more. I say, you look through a straw when you live life, and it kind of grows over time. And it's funny, because you're at your age and you feel like there's no straw there. You feel like you know everything and you see everything. And then you graduate, and then all of a sudden you're looking through a coffee mixer and you're like, holy shit, where'd that come from? But now as a coach, this straw is growing, and I'm seeing more and more and more things unfold, like Coach was talking about. And that's actually it. I've always, especially since I've been at Bama, dealing with the football program specifically, we've always had the best talent in a room. If this was the room with just the football team, the strongest, the biggest, the fastest, and then every year we get a different result, right? So why is that? What makes the difference? And everybody's quick to say, well, this team didn't work hard, or this team didn't have leadership, or this team doesn't have that, or doesn't have this and that. And some of those things are accurate, but to me, it's more about the things that we're talking about right now. And I think the biggest difference about this team than from last team, and I can't promise that we're going to become champions or anything like that, but I can tell you there's a big difference from last year and this year, is that we just have a different family this year. As far as a team's concerned, guys are willing to fight with one another. There were certain leaders on last year's team that when things got sticky, they would point fingers and blame it on the freshmen, or blame it on certain people, and it's that doesn't make any sense. The freshmen aren't even playing, you're playing, not the freshmen. So why would it be the freshman fault? Because the freshmen don't do what they're supposed to do. We're not getting the results we're supposed to get on the field. That doesn't make sense. So I think that's one thing to think about as a leader. You got to take it on yourself. But fast forward to this year, the leadership this year, they're not pointing fingers. When things go bad, they keep everybody calm and say, follow me, basically. We're going to get through this. We're going to punch through the wall. They put the team on their back. You watch Blake, you watch Amari Cooper, make huge plays when we're down 12, Instead of panicking and pointing fingers and saying, why'd you drop that? Why didn't you make that serve? Why'd you miss that point? You know what I'm saying? And started panicking and complaining, and then all of a sudden that momentum builds in a negative way. They're saying like, we got this, we're fine, look at each other in the eye, communicate, we got this. Hey, somebody step up and make a play, and we pull together and we make those plays, and all of a sudden, and it's like no point in that game did we feel out of it. When I was on the sideline the whole time, like I'm watching the communication he's talking about, and I'm looking in their eyes, and I see that killer in their eyes. And you know what I'm talking about. You see it in your teammates' eyes. You see a lack of it in some of your teammates' eyes. And I think that that's really important that this year, when you're communicating on the court, not only during practice, but especially even more so during matches, like, I don't see the animal's eyes today. Like, I got to figure out why not. You know what I'm saying? And that's something you got to figure out. You were saying earlier, learn how to communicate with one another. Like, maybe I got to pull them to the side. Maybe I got to say something to them in front of everybody. But being able to be candid with each other, be honest with one another, and then be able to say, hey, follow me. I'm going to make a play. Not be afraid to step up and make a big play, make a big point, make a big serve. You know? Like, being able to rely on your hard work, rely on everything you've done. Like, go listen to some of the players' post-game conference. They're talking about the training they do and why they believe in their ability. That's what they're communicating, what they did in the summer. Like, I think Blake even said this game wasn't even won, tonight. It was won in the off-season. So it's the same thing. Like, we're winning and losing games right now. Even when coach isn't watching y'all practice, we're winning and losing matches. Like, it's true. That's a belief that you're rooting deep within yourself right now. Whether you know it or not, you are either creating a habit or a belief that will not be broken, a spirit that will not be broken, or one that, you know what, I didn't really put it all in, so the guy across from me is probably going to take my spirit before the match is over with. That's only something you can create individually and as a team. And I think that's the biggest difference this year is that, specifically with the football team, is in comparison to last year, it's not just that the leadership guys, there's better leadership, but they're more willing to accept the blame and like look in the mirror and point at themselves and do the dirty work. It's like you walk into a house and it stinks, right? And there's 12 of us, and everybody's like, man, it stinks in here, it stinks in here, it stinks in here. All a motherfucker has to do is take out the trash bag, but we just sit here and we talk about how bad it stinks. But we don't solve the problem. The trash bag's sitting right there, but no one is going to pick it up and put it outside because we're too lazy, we're too scared to call one another out, we're too scared to be honest with one another. And I think it really is that simple. And I use that simple analogy, but sometimes I really think it's that simple. Like, when the leaders from last year is blaming on the freshman, it's because he's not willing to call himself out, who the real problem is, And I think that's what it comes down to. It's like, you don't ever get to a point where you think you're bigger than this team. Like, this team has no shot at winning the championship if there's Becker and then everybody else. Or if there's Sean and then everybody else. You know what I'm saying? It has to be everybody together fighting for one another. I'm talking about like clawing for one another. And I think that was the biggest thing going into this game is like last year it was so hurtful because Auburn ruined our chance of three-peating. And some of y'all might not have been part of that before. But when you work and grind 3 years for something, it is like a motherfucker. And then someone would just rip it from you. I mean, straight up, they wanted it more than we did that night. And they took it from us. And like, I still vividly remember being in that locker room after the game and just like, it was like somebody just stole my child. Like, I had worked 3 years for this with this group of men. Like, 3 years, man. 3 off seasons, 3 camps, 3, the spring lifting, the summer lifting, spring football, fall football, 3 seasons. I mean, year-round, 3 fucking years. Comes down. We're undefeated. And we're up by 7 with 2-3 minutes left. And somehow, on a kick 6, a fluke kick 6, they score with 1 second left. And everything you've worked for 3 years is just gone. Like this. All because you let someone else want something more than you did. And it's like you can't do anything about it. It is the fucking worst feeling And you know what it feels like to lose. You've been there. And I think this team will create identity. Whether y'all are winners or losers, y'all will decide real soon. You know, when y'all start competing in January, y'all will either be okay with winning or you'll be okay with losing. One or the other is going to happen, you know? And it's really up to the individuals on this team and what y'all are willing to, are you willing to get in each other's face and be honest with one another and do what it takes in order to just be crazy about winning and fight for it together, collectively, and communicate, be on the same page, and be willing to just die for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this team can't be broken mentally, physically. We're after wins, period. We're just at people's throats, we're at our opponent's throats, and we're willing to do whatever we want for it. And I think that's the difference between this year is like, and y'all have seen it, if you watch some of the games this year, it's like LSU, hostile environment, on the road. Arkansas, hostile environment. People are like, Arkansas sucks. People are saying, West Virginia sucks. They beat 2 top 10 teams. And like, all those games are on the road, tough games, and like, we're fighting it out, coming from behind, finding ways to win. Like, shit, you're gonna learn real quick in the season, like, a win's a win. So y'all just find a way to win. It don't matter if it's beautiful, like Texas A&M's game this year, or if it's sloppy, like Arkansas. A win's a win. Because, shoot, Arkansas ruined it for a few people this year, you know? So, I mean, Ole Miss being one of them. So, I think that's something to think about, like, and I use football because that's the other sport I work with, and I know that a lot of y'all are fans and y'all have watched, y'all have experienced it. And to me, man, like, it's no different. The ball's a different shape, but the competition is no different, man. It is just man versus man. And there might be 11 people on a football field, whereas there's only maybe 2 or 4 on a tennis court, but it is no different. It is like, we're going to use this ball and we're going to find out who wants it more. Straight up. I mean, each game's got its own rules, but the Warriors are the same, the competitors are the same, the look in the competitors' eyes are the same. It's just like, we're going to put the ball in the middle and we're going to see who wants to win more. Period. And it's one-on-one, but it's also team versus team. And I think that's the sweet thing about tennis. And I think that's something that this team has to buy into and utilize. Because individually, y'all might not stack up to a USC or, you know, a Georgia or, you know, I don't even know, I'm not too familiar with the greatest powerhouses. I've heard of them, but, you know, I know we're not where we need to be yet. But I know if we come together collectively, that we can intimidate, and we can bring energy to the table and build momentum and get ourselves in a great position. It's like, you're either going to create an opportunity for yourself or you're not, you know? Like, this past Saturday, that was an opportunity the football team created for themselves. By a lot of hard work, a lot of weeks stringed together, a lot of practices stringed together. Like, that wasn't just given to them. And it's so funny because we jump out on them, right? And we jump up on them. And then Auburn comes back and like, they're not going to just give it to us. They fucking hate us, right? It's the ball and the 2 competitors. Who wants it more? So, like, we had to dig deep and say, shit, I kept telling them, you want your crown? Take it. Like, it's there. You want to be the king? There's the crown. Take it. That's what I just kept saying the whole time on the sideline. And Cochran kept saying, like, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be like this the whole night. So buckle up. Set your chin. It's not going to be easy. And that's the same thing in the spring. No one's going to lay down for you. No one's going to give it to you because you have great facilities or because, you know, you wear an A in your chest. No one's going to say, oh, Bama, great Bama's going to just come in and walk all over us. No. Like I said, it's 2 competitors. It's one-on-one. It's team versus team. Who wants it more? That's all competition is. And that's what I love about it. And I think that's what you love about it. When we talked about why, every last one of you talked about competition. So let's see if that's real, if that's just talk. And let's make sure we communicate that and consider that this entire spring. And that's why we want to close up, we want to wrap up with consideration, communication, and then next week, early next week, do preparation, do effort, do accountability, so that y'all have a solid foundation. And then for me, it's like, I'm going to get with Coach and decide, you know, how do we want to continue this? Am I just going to talk to y'all maybe once a week? Am I going to talk to y'all before matches? Maybe send y'all audio clips through Stu? Or is it going to be something like, shoot, the football team does players-only meetings, you know? Like, I'll speak to them on Thursdays in the weight room, and I'll give them a message. Like, we talked about being a family and not letting anybody steal from our family before the Auburn game. But also, they meet as just team. No coaches allowed in the team meeting room. And each week, someone else speaks. And I know that might not be comfortable for everybody in here, but that might be something that y'all need to do. Just rotating. Like, Stu will take the lead. He's the captain right now, so week 1 for January 19th, for that first match, he's going to prepare a speech or a talk. And it doesn't have to be rowdy. It doesn't have to be how I talk. It has to be how you talk. It has to be how you communicate. And to me, that's more important, because you're hearing from your peer what's important to him. Because what's important to him's got to be important to you. Make sense? So I think that's the biggest thing moving forward, is that we find out what this team's made of. I mean, it's all laid out for you right there. And I know we've gone through the ups and downs. We've been tired. We worked hard. We've grinded. But, like, man, this is what it's all about. Like, all this work and everything,